All right, so my last video with all the bugged out games, 7 in a row, I think it was. I was asked to try to do a video in real time just to see if I don't know, well, just to avoid that situation, right? Because we won't be working off of replays. So I'm going to give it a shot. I have been a little bit sick, so if I start coughing, I'll try to flip the mic up. I'm cheeking a cough drop here. Hopefully it'll help. But it's just this cough. I just can't seem to shake it. Anyway, so we'll get started in some games. It's my login tag here. I try to have a sinister looking avatar and warning message so that people who join at least have some idea what they might be getting into, and hopefully aren't too salty if it's not the typical casual game that you might um, see in something like a four-player room, for example. So again, no changes. I would like, while we're waiting, sorry about that. I am looking forward to when they print, I assume they're going to print the various colored lands that work like this fiery islet, and I'd very much like to convert this one to whatever the white blue one is. So that's a change that I'm looking forward to making in the deck. Otherwise, feeling pretty good about the build so far. And we'll see what happens. Excuse me. So a big part of the reason that I don't typically make videos using this kind of a format is just that, well, this is a big part of making videos. Usually what I do is I'll start a game, flip over to YouTube, watch something, watch someone play another game, and wait until I get the little pop-up message. But I don't know, maybe we'll get some luck tonight and we'll end up with something here. The other thing I suppose I could talk about is the lands. I had mentioned before that I wanted to kind of bring up why the lands have been selected in the way that they are. Um, I don't know if it's an interesting topic to everyone who will be watching, but for me, every part of building the deck is interesting. So I think it could be useful, and there's probably some who will benefit. So basically, um, there's a couple of different factors that go into selecting which lands are going to go into the deck. First of all, I realized early on that one of the most powerful lands ever printed, frankly, is Mishra's Workshop. So I already started with the idea in mind that I really wanted, and of course there's some of the most powerful artifacts, Mana Crypt, Vault, and Soul Ring, do something very similar as a Mishra's Workshop. They produce large quantities of mana. And there's a land that's also somewhat similar in Ancient Tomb. So I realized early on that what I wanted to do was build a deck that would be able to capitalize on these heavy mana draws that produce lots of colorless. And the best way to do that was to convert um, colorless mana and store it and convert it into colored mana in the form of like Gilded Lotus and so on. A very nice gift for this deck, as it turned out, at one point when it came out, was a Chromatic Lantern, which removes the drawback of both Workshop and Tomb. At a low enough life total, tapping an Ancient Tomb is pretty awful, but a Chromatic Lantern can allow it to tap for any color without dealing damage to you, and as a side benefit, it also assists with 5-color lands like Mana Confluence. It doesn't assist with City of Brass, which is a triggered ability when it becomes tapped, but it does with lands like this. And it turns Mishra's Workshop into the best land ever printed, bar none. A land that taps for 3 or any 1 mana of any color is just crazy. So I started with the idea that I want to take advantage of fast mana, and that led me to after looking at the mana rocks, looking into the lands that would support them. And so therefore we end up with Tomb and Shop. Another way to make Tomb and Shop good, as it turns out, is this card, a Urborg. So Urborg made the cut because it allows you to draw something like it allows you to, well, it does two things in here, right? So first of all, it allows you to tap these for black mana even when you can't tap them for useful colorless mana. And secondly, it makes playing Necropotence far easier. You can have a draw that looks like this and has maybe a Thran Dynamo in it and something else and still hit that turn 3 Necro. And it happens quite often in the games. You'll see where you've got an early Necropotence in something like an Expedition map, and you can just go get Urborg. The other thing that Urborg does is it makes, so Expedition map, backing up, so Expedition map is a card that you very much want in this deck because one of the things that you can do is you can put together a combo with Crucible of Worlds, which is the Crucible Strip or Crucible Waste, but also any of your fetch lands. So any of your fetch lands can produce quite a bit of additional virtual card draw via the Crucible fetch land combo. So you're really trying to put this together. So in order to enable that, what's really nice is that you can run Expedition map, and if you have half of the combo, you can put the rest together with the map. Simultaneously, map is also enabling Urborg to power Necropotence a little bit easier. And map will also go get Mishra's Workshop, which can more easily play something like a Gilded Lotus, which also can power out a Necropotence. So a lot of the cards in the deck that might be difficult to play are designed for in the build itself, and it comes down to the mana base in particular. So I'll put Necro away for a second. Ah, well, we have a game, so we'll pick up there after the game, while waiting for more opponents, perhaps. So a game against Chalupa Batman. All right, playing Fire Song and Sunspeaker. So not likely to be a serious deck, but I'll do my best to give my opponent a tough game. You know, not treat them like they're no threat, so that I don't hopefully walk myself into turn an easy win into an easy loss is not the game plan here. All right, so when you're sequencing your lands early on, there's a couple different things you're trying to do. One of them in particular is you prefer to lead off with fetch lands. And there's two reasons for this. The first reason is that you want to go get a come into play tapped land so that you can get it into play without playing it and taking damage. The second reason, and the more important reason, is that if my opponent had on that turn, they went for Stern Plains. On that turn, let's say their second turn, they top deck Soul Ring and they tap it, play their Soul Ring, sack it, use the map, go get a Strip Mine or a Wasteland. I'm in trouble. And by using a fetch land, it removes that option, or if my opponent has like a fast way to kill my mana. All right, so that's one of the reasons why I sequenced my land that way. The other thing I did, though, is I protected. I have Demonic Tutor is a very important card, and so I want to protect my black mana so that I don't lose it, so that I can get my Demonic Tutor off. And I was trying to speculate on what play I should make this turn, but I think my opponent playing an additional mana rock, so I want to get ahead on mana. So I'm going to go get a Mana Crypt here and run out a Crypt into a Grim. And this way, when I play Stoneforge Mystic coming up, I'll be able to equip a sword right away if sword is actually what I'm going for. And I'm reasonably safe with the Force of Will here, but I would certainly prefer not to Force of Will if I can help it. I'm going to, of course, allow my opponent to have... I'm not going to stop my opponent's mana development, but they're only down to 3 cards, so Force of Will represents a Mind Twist for a third of their hand at this point, this land notwithstanding. So counterspells, my opponent has a ton of mana that I can't disrupt, causing all of the cards in their hand to be bad. Then I'm going to let them dump mana into play, leaving them with just a couple of good cards in their hand, and I'll target those. I'll focus on those. Opponent got Inventor's Fair, which is interesting, I suppose. fair to middling card, you could say. All right, so I'm going to always yield to Mana Crypt. I'm going to always choose heads. I wish I could always choose heads anyway. All right, so I'm going to get down the Volcanic Island here, and then this is actually more interesting to me because, I can run out the Stoneforge here, but I also have the option to do the Mystical Teachings thing, and I also have to decide as to whether or not I want to leave up Forbid. And with all that in mind, I don't think that I do. What I want to do is I'm going to play Stoneforge here because it's very, very powerful. And then I plan to force with Forbid if I need to, and Mystical Teachings if I don't have to. So I am going to get... So I may try to just keep my opponent off the board by getting Umezawa's Jitte here. But I think Breya can probably accomplish the same thing. So I would rather go get... So strangely enough, I actually think what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go get Skull Clamp. And I'll go ahead and put it into play because I don't have enough mana to cast a Mystical Teachings without using Grim Monolith anyway, so I might as well burn through my mana this turn. So the reason I'm getting Skull Clamp, of course, is to draw 4 with the Breya. And I've got the land to ensure that I can play Breya next turn if my opponent doesn't play Strip Mine or Wasteland. And then immediately clamp and draw 4 cards. And since I very well may be Force of Willing here and 2 for 1ing myself, I want to recover the cards that I lose. So I go down 2 cards and then up 4. That's still a very valuable situation. So this is a weird one here because if they hit a permanent here, it's super valuable to me. I don't think it's worth protecting a card that might actually 2 for 1 them. And I can always Teachings and get this card back again, so I'm going to go ahead and say okay. Unfortunately, I hit a Merchant Scroll there, so I didn't get the freebie. But they already got hurt by the fact that Stoneforge got that card for free for me. So, Boros Garrison's interesting. I might actually Vindicate that. I might tutor for Vindicate here. But I don't think I'm gonna do it. I'm not gonna attack their mana. So the question is whether or not I want to go get something that will allow me to get Skull Clamp back. And I don't think I do for now. I think I'm just going to sit pat. I've got enough mana to where I can make choices. There's a Merchant Scroll on top after all. And I might be able to save my force. And with that in mind, I think I'm just going to attack for 1 here. I'm not going to cast the Merchant Scroll because I can Teachings and then Mana Drain off of that. And that gives me Force of Will with Merchant Scroll. And then a Forbid off of Grim Monolith. So I have a lot of counter magic available. One card that I may try to get, so 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 mana over there. Yeah, so if I mana drain this, because it'll give me 6 mana back, it makes replaying Mystical Teachings incredibly straightforward. Just tap 1 black and replay it, and I still have mana left over where I can tap 1 blue and Merchant Scroll, and that will leave me with a counterspell in hand, plus the card that I Teachings for. And I do want to refill my hand, so I'm going to go get a card, ultimately, that's going to put more cards in my hand. So most likely what will happen is I'll Teachings for Mana Drain, and I'll Mana Drain. And then on the next turn I will flash it back and go get Counterspell, and then I'll Factor Fiction. So if my opponent's playing this card with no creatures in play, and I don't even have any removal in my hand, this is not a card I'm going to fight over. It's possible my opponent does not push here, and if they do, I'm just going to use my mana efficiently anyway. So I'll go ahead and Mystical Teachings. So I may want to go get a tutor. My opponent's kind of like, I may want to just Mind Twist my opponent's hand and then tutor up a Mana Drain and pass. I think I like that pretty well. So I think what I'll do is I'll just Teachings. And so this means that, you know, my opponent's taken too long to do anything. They haven't pressured me at all, so they've pretty much just It's kind of like, well, you're asking for it kind of a deal. If you just want to sit there and do nothing for extended periods of time, it's not going to work out too well. So great. Dumped all those cards out of my opponent's hand. When given the choice, I'll leave up white or black over red. So we'll go ahead and get mana drain so that I can flash back that teachings and refill my hand. And pretty good shape. Now, opponent does have Mind Stone and Inventor's Fair, and both of those will put additional cards into their hand, but still, it's going to take mana off their board to put cards in their hand. Probably buy me a couple of turns. I can use one of them to untap Grim or flashback teaching. See, my opponent's going to need some time to build up multiple threats to get through the mana drain, right? And that means I have plenty of time. And I'm one land away from having a Breya with mana drain backup. But if nothing happens, I've got Mystical Teachings flashback. And what I can do, let's just yield to this, is I can go fetch Factor Fiction and gas up again that way. Or I can get a permanent using Vampiric, for example, and just go get like Teferi or Jace. Tempted to untap the Grim, but I can do that off mana drain mana, so I feel this is fairly safe, even though I am giving my opponent an opportunity to cast a card here, but I'm not super concerned with it. I'm just going to take the Factor Fiction. Okay. And the reason is that I can easily Factor Fiction into I mean, with 5 cards out of this deck, plus the fact that it'll activate Colosseum, so I can go even deeper if I want to. So like if I had a brick where I hit just triple land, then I can Colosseum those into real cards. So it's kind of a draw 8 here for me. So we'll take a look. And with that many cards, I mean, this game's over. Yeah. Okay. Sure. I don't know if my opponent's just given up or what their deal is. I suppose I could have disenchanted something over there, but there's not really anything I'm super concerned about, to be honest. So if I play Narset and they don't sack the Mind Stone, then then kind of puts them in a spot where they need to sack it on my turn, which is a little tricky. All right, that's fine. Yeah, I'm not sure what was going on here, but so here's what I was thinking I was going to do because I have Force of Will and it's fairly safe here. I would probably, and I just want more mana, so I would probably go ahead and Tezzeret for 3 and go get Sword, equip the Sword, attack, get my mana back, and then I have 5 additional mana. I've got 9 cards in hand, so what I can do at that point is I can run out a something along the lines of Imperial Seal Winter Orb Pass. Even though Orb is bad right there, it's still good because my opponent has alternate mana sources and they have Garrison, but with the Sword, I'm not going to feel it, especially with the Tezzeret. And I would Imperial Seal there for something to work under the Orb as well. Most likely I would just go get Urza, frankly, and really abuse the Orb. And so, yeah, not super interesting of a game, to be honest, but I'll take a win where I get them. Anyhow, so we were talking lands, and I was talking about Necro and how important that is, and how important the lands are. And so the other thing with Crucible, of course, is that you want as many fetches as possible, which means, and in this deck, fortunately, we can run all 10. And a multicolor deck, every deck should run as many fetches as it can. by default. So it's just a bonus for this deck that it's able to do it. So that's an easy place to start. Ooh, this is an interesting hand. Okay. Wow. Is this the first time that I'll get to live the brought back dream here? Because that sounds exciting. Let's find out. I certainly wish that I were going first, because this hand would be much stronger going first, just because that one extra turn to set up where I could drop something like brought back into 4 lands and then go Urza or whatever would be pretty cool. Anyway, not going to happen this time. We'll see what happens. So hopefully my opponent doesn't play an untapped blue source here. If they do, then brought back is a little riskier. And then the other thing I'm hoping for is I don't want to see like a Sylvan library or something here. Okay, so far so good. I'm pretty sure they come in and play tapped. Alright, so I'm going to make the play on my opponent's turn during their upkeep. Because I don't want them to get blue mana into play. This play gets quite a bit weaker if I do that. So I got to make sure that I get both of my lands need to produce white. So I'm going to go get a scrubland, go get a tundra. I'm going to brought back them both. Okay, and we can carry on with the game. You who went first, my opponent went first, has now officially gone second. And what's crazy is these are both fetches, so I can actually play the Wayfarer, and I can actually do the Tithe trick where I sack, activate. So that's really cool too, you know. Of course, that tracker is a card I don't particularly want to see. And I'm better off not messing around with that and just nailing my opponent's hand here. So we'll go ahead and do that. Is there any other play that I can make here that makes sense? No, I don't really see one. I think I need to dig into my opponent's hand. So, well, it would have been cool to go to save up and have a little more time to muck about with development, but this is perfectly acceptable. Now, if I run it through the Grim, I could actually get my Wayfarer in play, and if I do that, then I can equip Sword and Swing. So I actually think that I'm going to, even though this is a little less efficient, I'm going to go ahead and do this. Because having a creature ready to attack next turn is very valuable. And I have exactly 5 mana, of course, to do it. Opponent's going to get a card to... So what I'm hoping, of course, that they do is sack right here and fail to find something that they can play. And then we can steal that card with the sword. All right, very nice. Everything going according to plan. And even if they want to block, it will not be... It is not a choice that they are allowed to make here. So the question is there a best way to do this? 3, 1, 2, 3. I could go get a mana crypt, but we're almost at the point in the game where I've got enough mana. So I could go get a mana crypt here, sword them, or I can save fabricate for an artifact that draws cards like Skull Clamp. So I think actually that's what I'm going to do. Alright, and then 1, 2, 3, 4 plus 2. So I'm going to need all of my mana in order to kill the tracker with Breya on this turn. So I'll go ahead and connect and go get a come into play tap land. And I'm going to get Watery Grave. That gives me 3 black for Necropotence. And it also preserves some of the white lands in here in case I draw Tithe, which I don't want to be a dead card. So white, red, black, and then blue. Always trying to leave up Underground Tundra if I may. All right, and then we'll just immediately kill that thing. I'm going to, so because I plan to do it, because I want to go get Skull Clamp, I'm going to do it this way, and I'm going to pass. So I want to get Clamp, and these represent more cards, and I don't want to have to replay Breya to get, hitting him for 4 with Breya and only drawing 2, to me, is worse than hitting him for 4 or less, but drawing 2 additional cards. Because I have enough pressure with the sword going already. Oh, well, lovely for you. Kind of miss my Breya now. Oops. All right, well, there's other things I can do here. I can, for example, steal that. I can steal that by going to get a shackles, or I could just rip like a boss. That's pretty good too. Yeah, with that in mind, do I want to... so, all right, here's what I'm going to do. So this is the other reason for doing the sword play, is that I can just go get the... I get all the mana back, right? I got the 6... I had exactly 6. So I get all the mana back, and then... so Breya is actually free. I'm going to save the will for a turn where I've got all my mana. I can play it pre-combat, play as much as I can from the graveyard, hit them, untap all of my lands, and play even more. So I want to take that thing down. Painful as it is, I guess I will give up some of these cards. But I've got so many cards at this point. I kind of just want more mana, to be honest. I might just get a Soul Ring here. Because of the Yagwil? Yeah. And it gives me the flexibility to activate Breya one more time if I need to. It also makes my copy a little bit more valuable, although I can, of course, copy the Sword or Breya for additional flyers if that's something that I want to do. Yeah. Yeah, this is getting real brutal here. When the wheel goes off, I'll be able to replay the Fabricate, and I'll have more mana to do it. So I was planning to copy the Soul Ring, actually. But the wheel goes off, I'll be able to replay, and then I get to fabricate into a Skull Clamp and then rebuild my hand that way real quickly. So good stuff there. We'll try again. And then while waiting, so talking about the fetch lands, of course we have a bunch of cards that combo with fetch lands. As you'd seen earlier, there's Weathered Wayfarer and Tithe, both of which you can put the fetch lands as well as the Strip Mining Wasteland or a few other cards, but you can put them on the stack and then activate these guys and then let these other things resolve. So very powerful. Wayfarer, of course, is also doing the same thing Map is doing most of the time, which is allowing me to abuse the best lands. Map and Wayfarer also pushed me to run the Singleton Throne of the High City. So anytime there's a stall, I have a stall breaker that will just win the game. Particularly useful against control. And against control, the other really useful card when you need to apply pressure is a Cavern of Souls. So these two cards make the cut to turn Wayfarer and Map into not just mana acceleration over here, or extreme fixing, or basically regular mana fixing, something like this, right? But also to turn it into card draw, to turn it into some sort of almost reverse card draw in the sense of nerfing my opponent's counter spells, basically blanking all their counter magic. or most of it. And finally, it also allows me to put a combo piece together, the Cephalid Colosseum, a card that made the way into the deck due to Narset. Narset, if you get Narset out and Colosseum, your opponent, they can't draw 3, but they have to discard 3 anyway. Super nasty stuff. And Narset, of course, combos with Dak Faden as well, but in this particular case, what we care about is a Narset Colosseum effect, as well as the ability for like Wayfarer to, you get into a mid-game stall and you've got 4 useless lands. You've got you go get a Colosseum, and you potentially turn 3 of those lands into up to 3 spells, right? So that's all making the cut there. Multicolored lands, I think, should just be obvious in a 4-color deck. So I don't think there's anything to say about that. Fetch lands, we've already talked about. The effect is just between deck thinning, shuffling for also Sensei's Divining Top, right? Combo with Crucible of Worlds. Combo with Weathered Wayfarer, combo with Tithe, combo with everything. Fetchlands combo with everything. So Fetchlands, they're no-brainer. Run all of them, all of them that you can, which should be all of them. So next, there's this Fiery Islet, which I say should be the blue-white one. The reason it should be the blue-white one and not the blue-red one is the primary colors of the deck are blue. And secondarily, you have equal quantities of white and black cards, although just a slightly bit more on the black side because you've got the triple black in Necro where you've only got the double white and brought back, but you have white activation costs. However, you've also got the flashback on Mystical Teachings, which is black. So black has just a slightly heavier lean to it. But then if you look into the multicolor cards, you see that it breaks out approximately even as well. Teferi and Doretti. Vindicate cancels itself out. So with roughly equal, very close to equal parts white and black, a slight leaning on black, but you have a single land that produces all the black you want, it would be better to have an extra white source because as my additional land, basically balancing out, we have balanced white and black cards. We want roughly balanced white and black mana sources. So this is just slightly off right now. Kind of bugs me, but it'll be fine later. And the reason for the islet, it's really just simply that an extra dual land effect is good. The life isn't too big of a deal. And it combos with, of course, the same things that the fetch lands combo with. So Crucible, Wayfarer, Tithe, and stuff. But it also works nicely with, it also works, and especially Crucible, right? If you're willing to give up your land drop. But it also works nicely with Brought Back now. It's a new land that, of course, combos with all the fetches and Fiery Islet as well. And, of course, this double white requirement would be another reason to add just one more white source instead of a red source, which I don't need. All right, next. There's one card in, there's a couple things going on with what's left, okay? So Tithe, you want to be able to tithe. Tithe gets only planes. So you want the maximum number of planes that you can fit in the deck, that you can afford to fit into the deck. So we very easily are going to run, first of all, we're going to run all of the blue. So first of all, we've got shackles, okay? So we want as many islands as possible in the deck. So we're definitely going to run, and we have triple blue costs. The deck is primarily blue. When you're running blue, people always attack your blue first. There's a lot of reasons why you always want to play blue. You want to have 2 blue on turn 2 for a number of different reasons. So blue is the main color that we want our lands to produce. But we're willing to accept lands that don't produce blue under certain circumstances. So the first part of which lands we select becomes very easy. We're going to take, so I'll just throw this in the Vedalken Shackles pile, I guess, which I suppose will be here. So the first thing we're going to take is all 3 dual lands. Secondly, we want to have at least 1 plains of each color for Tithe. So that means that in addition to Tundra, we also want to have Plateau, and we want to have, Delta's a fetch land. We want to have Plateau and we want to have Scrubland. So these are for Tithe specifically, so that we can tithe into our off colors. If you cast Tithe and you're holding Dak Faden and you really need a red mana, you need that red mana now. You don't have time to mess around with it. And Same thing. You need to cast a Toxic Delusion. You have a Tithe. You need black mana. You go get black mana. So that's where the scrub and the plateaus come in. And then again, we want to run as many islands as possible for shackles. 3 is certainly not enough. So all we can really afford at this point, with the way that the deck is gone, is the additional 3. Now the nice thing is this also picks us up an extra planes, and if you notice, there are only actually 4 planes for Tithe, which is good because when you fetch early, you're almost always going to fetch a planes or 2, and you really want to get a 2-for-1 on Tithe whenever possible. So you always, if you notice frequently, I tend to always get Hallowed Fountain early, but whenever I can, I try not to. When I'm fetching, I try to get Watery Grave first, then Hallowed Fountain. Then I go get my red source, so Steam Vents, right? Or if I'm not using end of turn fetches, if I'm using on turn fetches, I'll get the full dual ends. Right, so then once I've got my 3 colors, I go back to getting more black. I'll try to get the Underground Sea in order to work my way towards 3 black for Necro, followed by eventually the Tundra so I can get my double white for brought back, but also just to have redundancy on my colors, and so forth. And then of course eventually, volcanic. So you always want to keep fetching islands, islands, islands for your shackles, but there's an order you want to try to work with. And the reason you try to avoid going directly to the white first is because of Tithe, and because you don't want to thin all of the planes out of your deck, or 3 of them, leaving you with only one. This card basically is 1 white, draw 2 cards, almost always. But don't be afraid to use it to draw 1, of course. And lastly, there's exactly 1 land left that I haven't talked about, and it's Badlands. And so the reason for the 1 stupid, ugly Badlands, which we hate to play, because it's not a blue producing land, it isn't an extra plains for Tundra. Basically, this card is just all around kind of bad and annoying, but there are you don't want to ever have a fetch land that cannot fetch the color you need. And the only way to ensure that all of the fetch lands can fetch the color you need, for example, if you have a Wooded Foothills and you really need black mana, there isn't a land you can get except Badlands. Or, if we were going to run the tap version, but we certainly are not, except Badlands, in order to go get black mana, right? So if you just need to get black mana, Wooded Foothills can't do it any other way. It's going to get red-blue or red-white, or it has to get red-black, right? So same thing is true if you have a Verdant Catacombs and you need to get red mana. So if you need to get red mana off of Verdant, the only way to get red mana with this thing is also Badlands. So that's the reason for the Badlands, is because of these 2 cards here needing to be able to get their associated color that you can't get any other way. But for wooded to get black and verdant to get red. So we have to run the 1 Badlands. It's a necessary evil because running all of the fetches is an absolute is just way too powerful. It's a must. All right, so we're going to play Tristani, or Sharks suck, I guess, running Tristani, and this is not a keepable hand at all, so I'll just take that mulligan there. This is a keepable hand, so we'll keep this hand. I have to put 1 card on the bottom, so really it comes down to whether or not I'm greedy enough to keep the Throne of the High City against a green deck, and I am not. So I'm going to tuck that. I've got Jace. Now if I had no other card draw, I probably would have kept the Throne and just tried to work it out, but by doing it this way, I have the ability to play an early Breya to protect Jace, or an early Jace. Now normally, like I said before, you want to lead off with your fetches. But when you have Brainstorm, of course, you don't, because you'd really like to Brainstorm and then fetch away cards that you don't want. And the greatest because I have a reusable Brainstorm in my hand, so normally you don't want to do an end of turn Brainstorm here because I'll draw 3 and I'll put 3 back. Then I'll draw 2 back, and then I'll draw 1 of the cards, so I only really get to shuffle away 1 bad card. But I actually have 0 bad cards in my hand, so out of these 3, I'm probably only going to get 1 bad card in total, right? Like 1 card that I don't want to see. So, and so it's a matter of which card I don't want to draw. And I probably would prefer to draw Lotus over Dynamo, so I'm going to tuck this way. I definitely want the 4s. I'll take the Lotus here, and then I'm going to get rid of the Dynamo. Of course, I have to get red here, and I have to do it because well, it's the only way I can play Breya next turn, if I want to. So notice though, I've got black, black, black. I've got 3 black. I've got all my colors for Breya. I've got multiple blue sources. I've got as many islands as I could get out of that hand, and I'm only 1 white away from the other, from playing the graveyard card. But that card can act as a late game card very easily. It doesn't always have to just combo like I did earlier. So I'm just going to chill on it. And look, there's actually what I needed for that anyway. All right, so commander, my commander, or Breya, right? And I feel like it is more valuable for me to get my commander down, excuse me, or Jace, and apply some pressure, also get a nice defensive posture going. Plus, if I play Jace next turn, I can play the Windswept Heath and then brainstorm and shuffle away the cards that I don't want. Finally, I run this out because I may decide to change my mind, run play a land, and then sit on a Force of Negation for some reason. And by doing it this way, I also have guaranteed the ability to force if I absolutely have to. Hard to imagine what I'd be forcing, but there are some cards, I suppose. And if I played the Jace out, there's no guarantee I would have found a blue card in the top 3. So, all right. So now I've got what amounts to a protected Jace. So I could play Karn here and apply more pressure, but I think at this point I'll go with a slightly different kind of pressure. I'll run out the Jace and look for a blue card to go with my Force of Negation. If my opponent doesn't concede right here, some players will scoop early. All right, so I'm going to keep the Snapcaster. I don't think I'm going to need the Deluge with the board presence I have, and I don't need Cavernous Souls against this opponent. I'm going to go ahead and keep the Snapcaster. But you see, I've improved my position so that now I can Force of Negation using a Snapcaster instead of using a Jace, which is quite a bit better. Now, if there's any white flash creature that I'm concerned about that can attack Jace and kill it, I should leave 1 Thopter back here. And there is that 2/1 flash creature that punishes you for searching your library, but it isn't big enough to kill Jace, and that would prevent my opponent from doing this landscape play. So I'm just going to I'm not going to leave a Thopter back. I don't expect it. There's also a 3/2, but it has to bounce a creature, a 3/2 with flash, and I'm not worried about that. I could sack Windswept Heath here, but I'm going to leave it up because if I play Force of Negation on something here, and my opponent has the white Mana Tithe, the Force Spike, I may want to sack Windswept Heath for a Tundra. Of course, if they don't, then I'll go get come into play tapped. I think that's okay. I just have to keep things from coming into play that matter, and meanwhile I can go find disenchants and such. Either counter spells will keep things from coming into play, or disenchants or a disenchant will make that a non-issue. So with Jace fixing my deck, I don't think that there's a reason for me to waste a force here. And now I actually have flashback Snapcaster Brainstorm or Force. Okay. Opponent has 5 and I've got 4, so that's really nice. So let's draw 3 and then go ahead and grab some extra lands on the way as well. You see what I mean about carefully marshaling the, of course I don't need that because I'm about to draw extra, and it turns out that the Lotus might actually be a little bit slow. As may Karn, as a matter of fact. So I could run out Karn and I want to keep Snap for Force. I really like Narset. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to put Karn back. So I'm going to go ahead and Tithe. Yeah, this is the way. So we'll grab I've got exactly 2 planes in play, which means I have exactly 2 planes left in my library, and play a land here. I'll run out the Lotus, which will make future plays significantly easier. Of course, I can go get Necro, but I'm also using Jace already, so it's not as big of a deal for me here. So what I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and get Narset out. Force with Snapcaster is the best choice for me. I'll go ahead and take a dig. I might find like a Mana Crypt here or a Mox Opal. Or a Fabricate, which is a better card to force with in this situation. Given that Snapcaster has a juicy Brainstorm target there, and of course Imperial Seal down the road. All right, and so I'll go ahead and pass. Now I'm in phenomenal shape, right? So I can Imperial Seal into anything I want that isn't a creature, and then Narset it directly into my hand. I can Jace first, put cards back I don't want, Imperial Seal into a card I do want, and then Narset. So cannot force a negation that, of course. All right, so this opponent's going to go get 2 lands. And then they are completely tapped out, and you know what that means. Dun dun dun. Game over. You have killed yourself by playing this terrible thing. Well, my opponent's poor development and waste of time on Panharmonic. And thing is, like, cards that are reward you when you eventually start playing the game are not good cards. Unless you can somehow put a combo together. Like if it's a 2-card combo that just wins the game, okay, that's got some potential. But if it's like incremental gain eventually someday when certain things happen, like, oh look, I got an extra land here. It only costs 4 mana for my rampant growth. Not good. All right, so yeah, this game's over. I can negate a Soul Ring or Crypt if my opponent finds one. This is super over. Okay, so no need to. So at this point, I mean, how do I want to win, right? So I can fabricate into a Winter Orb or Muddle. We'll probably do it with a Fabricate. So 3, 4, 5 for Orb. I can Imperial Seal for 1. I could Mind Twist, or I can go get J. Oh, I know what I want. I want Urza. I want more mana. I still want more mana, so I'm going to Imperial Seal for Urza, and then I'm going to Jace it into my hand. All right. Because I can't Narset it Urza into my hand. All right, so we'll go grab Urza, and we'll go ahead and Jace that into my hand. Okay, and then a Demonic Tutor just makes this even more trivial. So we'll just drop the Jete and probably, I mean, do I need Snapcaster? I need Muddle. I've got so many ways to do this. Drop the Jete. We'll drop Snappy, I guess. All right, so let's get Urza down. I may just have a guy that's so huge, 6-6-4-4. It challenges my opponent's board pretty easily, honestly. It's going to grow some more, so let's go ahead and tap for some blue. And don't want to do it with, I'll just do it with the Fabricate. Got to save this for, I probably could have used Demonic Tutor here. Fabricate's fine though. Alright, so we'll get the orb down. See if I can go ahead and Narset into another blue card. No, but I'll take a Mind Twist. I could Demonic Tutor into a Mana Crypt just to make this an 8-8. Probably okay. I really want to spend all my mana this turn, so yeah. Alright, so let's go get a crypt here. All right. So I got my 8/8, and I've got all the mana I could ever want, including the ability to hardcast Force of Negation right now, and also hardcast a Muddle the Mixture, despite not really appearing to have anything. All right, so end step, I'll go ahead and just tap for blue. And yeah, that should do it. I can kill this, I suppose. I'm going to leave it alone for now. I'm going to kill it with a Mind Twist, so. Okay, so we'll kill it with a Mind Twist, so we'll just bounce this back to hand. Tap for 2, and a bunch of black. 3, 6, 7. Bloop. Okay. Can transmute Muddle for Jite. So, I mean, is that good? I mean, what makes this opponent give up, right? 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Yeah, they're just dead on board. All right, that'll work. Urza is so insane in this deck. All right. So I think I talked about all the lands as much as I can. So what would I do differently if I could do different things? What I would really prefer is that there were 8 islands in the deck. I'm also not that comfortable with having, frankly, even 7 would be better than 6. 6 is low for Shackles. It's doable, obviously, but it's because if my opponent wastes and strips at least one of them, it's only 4 lands. It gets pretty tight, and that's I don't know. Anyway, we've got a Aetheros God of Passage being played by Troy Hessian. I'm going to obviously keep this hand. I get to go first. This is an excellent hand. So once again, yeah, so this is a weird one. I'm going to play around with my white card. The recursion, the graveyard recursion card, off of the Spellseeker. So I think that should be pretty interesting, actually. Or am I? So what do I want to get with the Spellseeker? So the key is I'm going to get mana and I want cards in my hand. The way this sequence is out, I think I actually get a Soul Ring here, not a Crypt. So I can't play the Spellseeker without blues, so if I do get the little guy, it's not helping me that much. So maybe I won't. Yeah. I think what I really want to do is Mind Twist my opponent here. So I'm going to go get Tundra. Excuse me. And a twist. And if my opponent starts dumping cards, then they're not attacking my mana base unless the cards are dumping, I guess is... Well, Soul Ring Destruction would be a bit of a pain here. But if that doesn't happen, well, the next couple turns are... It's probably lights out for my opponent. It's turn 2, turn 3 kill type of situation. We'll see. No him, no sinkhole, no disenchant, no chance. Yeah, that's gross. Yeah, okay, so I'm going to go ahead and Trinket. I'll go get Crypt. And run out in Underground. Now, my opponent could go after and should try to go after my So I ran out the crypt first because I wanted, if my opponent had a disenchant that for some reason they were sandbagging, I wanted to have a second target for my copy artifact. All right, so what my opponent needs to do quite badly is either make me discard or kill that underground sea. Um, but if my opponent does the expected thing, which is draw, play land, play their commander, they have 7 cards in hand, and then their hand gets dump trucked, and the game ends. Okay, so they do have a strip mine. They absolutely have to kill that, yeah. So there was a little risk there. I thought about Trinket for Opal for that exact reason, but I feel like I'm so far ahead that it's probably fine, and if I have to wait a little bit on the Mind Twist, it's all right. There's a lot of pressure on the board already, so and the deck's loaded with enough mana that I expect I should be okay. Vindicate was a little bit of a sad top deck, but that's all right. I probably should move the Jite over to the Trinket Mage. Yeah, this is getting worse. Opponent doesn't seem to have a land, though, so maybe something will happen. Are they going to twist me for 2? No, they're going to DT. For, I'm guessing, what, Wasteland? I mean, the one thing they can try to do is continuously destroy my mana. I wonder what they go after here. The other card that they could get is Necro and just bank on me not twisting them. But then they would need... Okay, so they got a land that if I mind twist them, they get to get an extra card in their hand. That's actually quite clever. I definitely like that. Okay, there we go. Alright, so I want to do it this way, and then dump the Vindicate, I think. Yeah, I'm going to go this route. Let's go after that hand. And I'm going to not tap all of my mana because I don't want to get manatized. Alright, awesome. That'll definitely work. I mean, next turn my opponent gets to run out their commander or whatever they draw, but I've got a Vindicate hiding on top. And if they don't draw anything too particularly good, for example, let's say they draw something that's not too useful and they sack this to dig a little further using Soul Ring mana, and then they take the 1 remaining mana and pump it into a Swamp and a Plains and play their commander. Let's say they make that play, then they're really, really hosed because Vindicate would take out their Soul Ring, leaving them on just 2 mana. So, as far as this, I suppose I've covered everything other than what would I like? What would I like if I could fit another land in here? I'd really like a basic land for Ghost Quarter, Path to Exile, and cards like that that my opponent might play. But also for an extra island for Shackles. But not having it is just not that big of a deal, ultimately. So that is, I realize the conversation about lands was probably pretty disjointed. But if it wasn't clear, what I wanted to make clear was that every single land is in there doing multiple things for this deck. There's more than one reason for each card to be in there. Each land is very carefully selected to do what it does. So if you want to change the mana base by going beyond 31 lands, then by all means. But if you are going to run the same 31 land count and you're not going to run this mana base, the only flexibility that I see is Fiery Islet, or Islet, whatever the hell it is, and Throne of the High City. You could make them into like white-black or, other dual lands. You could convert these back into basic islands. for your shackles. There's a couple. These are the these are the the two flex slots. The rest are non-negotiable basically. They're far too important at doing what they do. These two are definitely negotiable. So that's all the room that the deck really has to play with. So if you're going to play with, a couple of cards, feel free. But I highly recommend not changing anything but those two in your mana base, or you will have made the deck worse. Unfortunately, that's just the way it is. It's the deck list is that tight, at least as far as the mana base goes. Um, and as far as the basic deck list goes, flex slots are very, very few. Brought back could still be considered a flex slot. Seal of Cleansing can still be considered as flex slot in the build for this deck. So these are cards that are negotiable as far as putting them in or taking them out of the deck. I don't think anything else, very little else feels like it's a card you should even consider taking out. Um, maybe, maybe you could argue for like this and this. I don't think so, but maybe. Um, Pretty much nothing else. I suppose you could also possibly take out Snapcaster Mage. Although again, I don't think so. I think that's crazy. But it could be correct if in some future version of the deck the build is just so picture perfect with some new card that's just that much better. Maybe you could play with it, but really, ultimately, like most of those cards, I wouldn't play with. The only cards I think you have for flex are Seal and Brought Back. Um, and that is about it. And maybe forbid, because it's a heck of a counter that turns. It's a semi-lock with Necro. It can be a soft lock with Sword of Feast and Famine and a card drawing source. It can turn. It's another way to turn. Like you can brainstorm away bad cards. You can Colosseum them away. You can Jace them away. But Forbid just lets you turn them into another counter spell. It really puts the math in the game. It converts cards into a mathematical lock rather than really worrying about what they are for the most part. So probably Forbid can't go, to be honest. But add a blue one. It's a 3-mana counter spell, and we really don't want to be paying full 3 mana for our counter spells. So uh, it it could. As far as these other two go, I think that if Seal comes out, then you've got to put Vandal Blast back in. So it's really just what do you prefer there, or Fragmentize potentially, or some other, like you still need another disenchant effect is what I'm getting at if you don't want to run Seal. And then Brought Back, well, it's done some pretty awesome stuff. In fact, I've never played the card and actually lost a game, but I don't lose a lot of games typically, so it's could be a coincidence and not necessarily a source of winning. But I certainly like what it's done in the last few games. I've been very happy with it, and I assume I think it's a sleeping giant. Like it's a sleeper card that is deceptively more powerful than it actually looks. So it looks like I'm not really getting games, folks. Apologize, but everybody wants to play multiplayer tonight. So I may have to call it here if I don't pick up another game real soon. I'll probably throw in the towel. At least I got to talk about lands, which is really what I wanted to do. And I'm trying out this format of gaming while talking with you, and I suppose sort of more like Twitch, I guess, than YouTube. But tell me what you think about the format of the video. Yeah, it really doesn't look like I'm going to get another game here. So, did you like this format? Would you like to see more videos like this? Do you prefer, all of them are like this, none of them are like this, something in the middle? What are your thoughts on the matter, if you have any? And then what do you think about how'd you like seeing the brought back in action tonight? Was it impressive? I think ultimately right now that's really the big, like that's I would not say this card is we cannot staple it to the deck and just leave it in there the way that we do with cards like Urza's been stapled into the deck. Like this card is not getting cut ever. I was on the fence about it for a while, but at least I, I don't see any reason that I don't see any way that this card can be cut. It's too insane. It's just another Gilded Lotus that's even more powerful quite frequently, and comes with a mode attached to it. The card is ridiculous. So brought back is not like that. So what do you think? Should it stay? Should it go? Should I not get cute with the Seal of Cleansing and come back here and stick it in as the because these two cards used to be Fragmentize and Vandal Blast, right? And so I had more turn one kills for Soul Rings that I don't have now. But I have the potential to kill two, like a Soul Ring and a Crypt with a CO brought back turn. So in a way, I kind of have the same amount of removal, but it's definitely not the same. So, you know, anyway, but brought back, much like Copy Artifact. So my thought is that Copy Artifact can keep up with the Soul Ring by giving you the 2 mana that they're getting, so now you're even. Brought back can do the same thing as you saw earlier, where I had actually produced 2 lands immediately. So in that way, I see it as kind of like I see these two cards actually functioning as a way to keep up with this card, which keeping up with this card is what every deck you build in EDH needs to say. It needs to answer the question, what do I do when my opponent gets a Soul Ring, right? So green has, and every color has their answers, but you really want to make sure you've got them. And sometimes that answer is, well, I'll just keep up with them. And that's what Brought Back tries to do. All right, anyway, enough on that, though. Thank you very much for watching. Sorry the game time was limited, but this is actually the way that it really goes. And again, please let me know what you think of the format. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time.